You can feel it, can't you? This peculiar heaviness in the air, this electric tension that has no name but fills every quiet moment with an inexplicable sense of anticipation. Something is shifting in the unseen realm, in that space between what was and what will be, where intentions crystallize into action and silence prepares to shatter into sound. The energetic field surrounding your connection has been stagnant for so long, trapped in a frozen stillness that felt like abandonment, like endings, like the final word spoken into an empty room. But stillness is not death. Stillness is preparation. What has been stuck is about to move with a force that will leave you breathless, with a momentum that has been building in the invisible architecture of fate itself, gathering strength in the shadows of their psychology, in the deepest chambers of their terror and their longing. They have been wrestling with something you cannot see, locked in a battle between the self that built walls and the self that remembers love, between the ego that demands protection and the soul that knows it is dying without you. This war is reaching its conclusion. The dam is cracking. The resistance that has held them frozen in place is beginning to collapse under the unbearable weight of what they truly feel, what they have always felt, what they can no longer deny no matter how desperately they try. You are about to witness something that defies everything their previous actions taught you to expect, something so unexpected it will seem like a different person has awakened inside the shell of who they were. The universe is conspiring toward revelation. Write, "I'm ready," in the comments if you can feel this shift in your bones, if you have been sensing this approaching storm even when logic tells you nothing will change. Inside their mind right now, there is chaos, a crescendo of voices screaming contradictions, pulling them in opposite directions until they can no longer distinguish their authentic desire from their protective mechanisms. They have reached their limit. The tension between wanting you and fearing you has stretched their internal world to a breaking point that cannot sustain itself another day, another hour, perhaps not even another breath. Pride is finally losing the battle to love, that merciless pride that convinced them they could live without you, that whispered reassurances about moving forward, about finding someone easier, someone less threatening to their carefully constructed defenses. But the heart knows what the ego refuses to acknowledge. They are haunted by you in ways they never anticipated, your absence a presence more overwhelming than your company ever was, filling every space they enter with the ghost of what they destroyed, what they walked away from, what they pretended not to need. Sleep brings dreams of you, waking brings memories of you, and the in-between state brings the unbearable recognition that they have made a catastrophic mistake. They see you in strangers on the street, hear your voice in songs they've heard 1,000 times before, feel your energy in rooms where you have never been. This is not nostalgia. This is the soul recognizing its mirror, its completion, its unfinished business written in the language of divine contracts and karmic entanglements. The defensive structures they erected to survive your absence are crumbling from within, no longer strong enough to contain the magnitude of their longing, their regret, their desperate hope that it is not too late. They have tried to convince themselves that silence is strength, that distance is dignity, that moving on without explanation is somehow acceptable, even admirable. But these lies are disintegrating. The truth is rising like water through cracks in concrete, unstoppable, relentless, flooding every chamber of their consciousness with the undeniable reality that they need you. They want you. They cannot continue this performance of indifference without losing themselves entirely to a hollowness that masquerades as freedom, but is actually the slowest form of dying. They are working up courage for something big, something that terrifies them more than anything they have ever contemplated, something that will require them to dismantle every protective layer they have spent years constructing around their vulnerability. This is not a casual text sent at midnight when their defenses are lowered by alcohol and loneliness. This is not a like on your social media, not a breadcrumb designed to test your availability without risking their ego. What they are preparing is substantial, undeniable, a gesture so significant it will leave no room for misinterpretation, no space for you to wonder if they are serious or simply bored, lonely, curious about whether you still care. They are planning an action that will require them to be completely vulnerable, to strip away the mask of indifference they have warned so convincingly that even they sometimes believe it, to stand before you without armor or excuse or the safety net of ambiguity. They have been rehearsing words in their mind, conversations they play out in the theater of imagination, where they know exactly what to say and you respond exactly as they hope. But reality is approaching, and the script must translate from fantasy into flesh, from thought into spoken truth, from the safety of their inner world into the terrifying unpredictability of your actual presence. Perhaps it will be a letter, pages of handwritten confession that their fingers have drafted and discarded 100 times, trying to find language adequate to contain the enormity of what they need to express. Perhaps it will be a phone call that interrupts your ordinary day with the extraordinary declaration they can no longer keep inside. Perhaps they will show up in person, physically placing themselves in front of you so that you cannot ignore them, cannot dismiss them as another digital ghost haunting your notifications. Whatever form this action takes, it will be undeniable. It will demand your attention, your consideration, your response. They know this moment will define everything that comes after, that how you receive their vulnerability will determine whether this connection survives or dies permanently, whether the door they slammed shut can be opened again or remains locked forever. The courage this requires is immense. They are not confident. They are not certain of your reception. They are walking toward you through a landscape of their own terror, choosing you despite every fear, every doubt, every voice that tells them they are about to experience the most painful rejection of their life. Something happened recently that shattered their illusion of control, a catalyst moment that forced them to confront the reality they have been avoiding with such desperate determination. They saw you moving on, or they perceived movement in your energy that suggested you were releasing them, letting go of the hope that kept you tethered to a connection that seemed to exist only in your own heart. This terrified them. The possibility that you might actually heal, might actually find peace without them, might actually build a life where they are a distant memory rather than an active wound, triggered something primal in their system, a panic that revealed the truth beneath their performance of disinterest. Or perhaps they hit rock bottom in their own journey, descended into a darkness where all their distractions and denials stopped working, where they could no longer outrun the emptiness that your absence created, where they finally had to sit with the unbearable reality of what they destroyed. In that lowest place, they surrendered. Pride dissolved. Fear dissolved. All that remained was the simple, devastating truth that they love you, they need you, they cannot pretend otherwise for one more day. Divine timing is not random. The universe orchestrates these breaking points with precision, waiting until the soul is ready to choose truth over comfort, vulnerability over protection, love over the fortress of isolation. They have been receiving signs they can no longer ignore, synchronicities that seem to scream your name, reminders of your connection appearing in ways too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. A song that was yours together playing in every coffee shop they enter. A stranger wearing your signature scent passing them on the street. Dreams so vivid they wake up reaching for you, your absence in their bed more tangible than the sheets beneath their body. These are not random occurrences. These are the universe's way of saying the time has come, the preparation is complete, the next chapter is ready to begin. They can resist no longer. The internal pressure has reached a point where action is not a choice but a necessity, where reaching out to you is as involuntary as breathing, as essential as the heartbeat that keeps them alive. Carl Jung understood that we cannot meet love with an unhealed heart, that the shadow self, those rejected and disowned parts of our psyche we refuse to acknowledge, will sabotage every attempt at authentic connection until we have the courage to integrate them into conscious awareness. They have been doing this work, perhaps without even naming it as such, descending into the dark territories of their own psychology where their wounds live, where their patterns of abandonment and fear of intimacy have their roots in childhood traumas and inherited pain. They had to face their demons before they could face you. The person who walked away from you was operating from their shadow, from the terrified parts of themselves that equate vulnerability with annihilation, intimacy with loss of self, love with inevitable betrayal. But something in their journey forced confrontation with these unconscious patterns, perhaps therapy, perhaps a complete breakdown that left them no choice but to examine the architecture of their defenses. Perhaps another relationship that mirrored back to them exactly what they had done to you, teaching them through the agony of their own abandonment what it feels like to be left without explanation, without closure, without the dignity of honest communication. The shadow always finds a way to become conscious, either through our willingness to look directly at it or through the universe's insistence on showing us our reflection in increasingly painful circumstances until we have no choice but to see. They are seeing now. They are understanding that their flight from you was never about you at all, but about their own unprocessed fear, their own unworthiness made manifest as rejection of the very love they desperately wanted. Transformation is not comfortable. It requires the death of who we thought we were, the dismantling of every false identity we constructed to survive, the willingness to stand naked before ourselves and acknowledge our own capacity for cruelty, cowardice, self-betrayal. They have been in this fire. They are emerging changed. Subscribe to this channel to witness the unfolding of this sacred journey, to understand the deeper patterns at work in your own connection, to receive the wisdom that will help you navigate what is coming with clarity and power. The form their vulnerability takes will be unmistakable in its sincerity. Stripped of the casual tone they used to maintain emotional distance, the jokes they deployed to avoid serious conversation, the ambiguity they hid behind when they wanted connection without commitment. It might be a letter, several pages of handwritten truth that arrives in your mailbox like a message from another dimension. Their handwriting itself an intimacy you forgot the shape of. Words they have never said stacked one after another in sentences that tremble with the effort of absolute honesty. It might be a phone call where their voice cracks and breaks around the confession they can barely force past their throat, where silence speaks as loudly as their words, where you can hear them fighting tears, fighting terror, fighting every instinct that tells them to hang up before they reveal too much. It might be them showing up at your door without warning, physical presence eliminating the buffer of screens and distance, their face showing you everything their words might fail to convey, their eyes holding a plea their pride would never permit them to speak in clearer language. An apology, a confession, a plea, words like "I was wrong," and "I'm sorry," and "I love you," and "I need you" spoken without deflection, without excuse, without the qualifications they used to add to every vulnerable admission. They will tell you they have been afraid, that they ran because the depth of what they felt for you overwhelmed every defense mechanism they relied on to feel safe in the world. They will tell you they thought they could forget you, replace you, move forward as though your connection was not the most real thing they have ever experienced, and they will admit that every attempt at forgetting only intensified your presence in their consciousness. They will expose the pattern, the fear, the wound, the truth beneath their previous actions. This is not performed vulnerability designed to manipulate your sympathy. This is the real collapse of their protective structures, the authentic emergence of the self they have kept hidden even from themselves, the person beneath the person finally stepping forward because hiding is no longer survivable. Understand the magnitude of what this costs them, the sheer terror of placing themselves before you without guarantee of reception, without knowing if you will meet their vulnerability with compassion or cruelty, forgiveness or rejection, openness or the cold finality of a closed door. This is not a breadcrumb tossed carelessly to see if you are still hungry for their attention. This is the whole loaf, the entire offering of who they are beneath their defenses, everything they have and everything they fear giving placed in your hands with the knowledge that you have every right to refuse it, to say no, to tell them it is too late, too little, too damaging to attempt again. They know they might lose everything, and they are doing it anyway. Their ego, that structure of identity they have protected so fiercely, is being sacrificed on the altar of this truth they can no longer contain, this love they can no longer deny, this need for you that has grown so enormous it eclipses every other concern, every other priority, every other relationship in their life. The risk of humiliation is real. The risk of rejection is real. The risk that you have moved so far beyond them that their confession will land in a heart that no longer has space for them is absolutely real, and they are walking toward it anyway, choosing the possibility of connection over the safety of silence, choosing the chance of reconciliation the certainty of regret. They are terrified you will look at them with indifference, with pity, with the detached kindness you might offer a stranger who has confused you with someone they once knew. They are terrified you will have found someone else, someone who did not make you wait, who did not make you question your worth, who gave you easily what they could only give through this agonizing process of internal collapse and reconstruction. They are terrified you will forgive them but no longer want them, that you will acknowledge their growth but explain that you have grown too, in a different direction, toward a future that does not include them. All of these terrors are valid. All of these outcomes are possible, and still they come. Still they choose this risk over the slow death of living without you, over the nightmare of realizing years from now that fear cost them the one connection that made them feel truly alive, truly seen, truly capable of the kind of love that redeems every previous failure. Real change speaks through consistent action, not just words wrapped in temporary emotion, not declarations made in the heat of loneliness or fear of losing you that dissolve when their anxiety settles and their defenses rebuild themselves overnight. You will know this is authentic transformation rather than ego testing or manipulation by the quality of their presence, by their willingness to sit with your anger, your hurt, your questions without becoming defensive, without making your pain about their discomfort, without rushing you toward forgiveness so they can stop feeling the weight of what they did. Authentic return comes with accountability, with the humility that can say, I understand why you cannot trust me, without demanding immediate absolution, without expecting your wounds to heal on their timeline simply because they have finally decided to show up. They will demonstrate change through patience, through allowing you to move at your own pace, through respecting boundaries they previously violated with their unpredictable presence and absence, their hot and cold patterns that kept you destabilized and confused. They will show you through their actions that they have done the internal work, that their apology is not just regret for losing you, but genuine understanding of the pain they caused, the ways they made you feel small, uncertain, not enough, when the truth was always that their own fear made them incapable of receiving the love you offered. You will feel the difference energetically, in the quality of their attention, in their willingness to be vulnerable without expecting reward, in their commitment to showing up even when it is uncomfortable, even when you are not ready to trust them, even when the path forward is unclear. Real change does not demand immediate reconciliation. Real change says, I will wait as long as it takes, and if waiting is all I ever get to do, I will accept that as the consequence of my choices. Real change does not bargain. Real change does not keep score. Real change understands that trust must be earned back slowly, through consistent demonstration, through months of showing you that this version of them is stable, reliable, committed to their own healing as much as to reconnection with you. Share this message if you are waiting for real and refuse to accept anything less than authentic transformation. In this approaching moment, when they finally speak their truth, when they finally offer themselves to you without armor or exit strategy, your power is absolute, your choice sovereign, your response the hinge upon which both your futures turn in directions that cannot be predicted or controlled. You are not obligated to accept their offering simply because it is vulnerable, simply because it cost them everything to place themselves before you, simply because you can see the sincerity in their eyes and hear the desperation in their voice and feel the genuine nature of their transformation. You are allowed to say not yet, to tell them you need time to trust this change, to see it demonstrated over weeks and months, rather than accepting it in the first rush of their confession. You are allowed to say not ever, to recognize that some connections serve their purpose in teaching us about ourselves, about our patterns, about what we will and will not tolerate, and then must be released regardless of how much love remains, regardless of how much growth has occurred. Both of these responses are valid. Both honor your journey. But you are also allowed to forgive and try again, to extend the grace of another chance not because you are weak or desperate, but because you recognize that all humans are wounded, all humans operate from fear, all humans sometimes destroy what they most value before they understand its worth. You are allowed to believe in their transformation, to trust your own discernment, to choose the risk of hope over the safety of permanent separation. Carl Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And perhaps this painful separation was necessary for the transformation that allows a healthier connection to emerge from the ashes of what was. Your choice matters immensely. Your choice shapes not only this relationship, but your understanding of your own worth, your own capacity for boundaries and forgiveness, your own willingness to remain open to love even after betrayal. Trust yourself. Trust the wisdom that has brought you through this painful period of waiting and wondering. Trust that whatever you choose in this moment will be exactly what your soul needs to continue its evolution. This is not years away, not some distant future where circumstances finally align and courage finally accumulates enough momentum to overcome fear. This is close. This is approaching with the inevitability of dawn after the longest night, with the certainty of spring after winter's death grip finally releases its hold on the frozen earth. In the coming days and weeks, you will begin to notice signs, synchronicities that announce the approaching shift before it materializes in your physical reality, before their message arrives, or their voice breaks the silence, or their presence interrupts your carefully constructed life without them. When you see the specific symbol that has always represented your connection appearing repeatedly in unexpected contexts, know that the energetic preparation is complete. When you feel a sudden shift in your own heart, a softening toward them that seems to come from nowhere, an inexplicable knowing that forgiveness is possible even when your logical mind insists on continued protection, trust that this is your soul recognizing the approaching reunion before your conscious awareness catches up. When dreams of them intensify, when thoughts of them intrude more frequently despite your attempts at detachment, when you find yourself wondering about them with a quality of attention that feels different from the obsessive wondering of earlier months, understand that your energies are beginning to merge again in the invisible realm, preparing the ground for what must manifest in the visible world. The unexpected is coming. The action that seemed impossible is becoming inevitable. The person you thought had forgotten you, dismissed you, moved beyond you, is about to prove that none of those assumptions were ever true, that beneath the silence was a love too terrifying to acknowledge, too intense to approach, too real to survive with their defenses intact. They needed time to become someone capable of loving you the way you deserve. That time is ending. Are you ready to receive it? Are you ready to witness the death of who they were and the birth of who they are becoming? Are you ready for the unexpected?